I was invisible at my sister's wedding, literally. They seated me behind a decorative column where no one could see me, like I was something to hide. My own mother walked past me 3 times without making eye contact. My sister never mentioned I existed to any of her guests. I sat there in my carefully chosen dress, holding a gift I'd spent weeks selecting, wondering why I'd even come. Then a man I'd never met sat down in the empty chair next to mine. He leaned close and whispered, "I can see you're drowning here. Just follow my lead and pretend you're with me." I should have said no, should have asked who he was, what he wanted. But there was something in his eyes, understanding, maybe, or recognition of pain he'd felt himself. So I took his hand. 3 hours later, he stood up to give a speech that made my sister's face go white. And by the end of the night, my entire family was looking at me like they'd never seen me before. But I'm getting ahead of myself. Let me tell you how the invisible daughter became impossible to ignore. It started 3 months earlier with an envelope that should have made me happy. The invitation arrived on a Wednesday morning in March, slipped between my electricity bill and a coupon for pizza delivery I'd never use. I almost missed it entirely, which, looking back, feels fitting for how my family has always treated me. Almost there, but easy to overlook. I'd been up since 3:30 that morning. That's the reality of being a pastry chef that nobody tells you about. While everyone else is sleeping, you're already elbow deep in flour, coaxing butter into submission, watching sugar transform into art. I work at Lark and Sparrow Bakery in Capitol Hill, a place that smells perpetually of vanilla bean and browned butter. It's small, probably seats 20 people max, but what we create there? That's magic. My apartment was quiet when I finally stumbled through the door around 2 p.m. Small, yes, cramped by some standards, but it was mine. Plants lined the windowsill, mostly succulents, because I kept killing anything that required real attention. My KitchenAid mixer sat proudly on the counter, the most expensive thing I owned. The afternoon light came through at just the right angle, hitting the collection of vintage cake stands I'd been accumulating from thrift stores. This was my life. Not impressive by my family's standards, but it was honest. It was real. The envelope was cream-colored, heavy stock paper, expensive, the kind that announced importance before you even opened it. My sister's name was embossed on the return address in gold lettering, Isabella Chen and Gregory Whitmore. Isabella was getting married. I stood there in my tiny kitchen, still wearing my flour-dusted work clothes, holding this formal announcement of my sister's happiness, and felt absolutely nothing. Not joy, not excitement, not even surprise, just a hollow sort of acknowledgement that yes, this was the next logical step in Isabella's perfect life. Trajectory. Of course she was getting married. Isabella did everything right, everything on schedule. Graduated summa cum laude from Columbia Law, made junior partner at 30, bought a condo in Queen Anne with views of the Space Needle, and now marriage to someone named Gregory Whitmore, a name that sounded like it belonged to a country club member or a yacht owner, probably both. I opened the envelope carefully, years of handling delicate pastry work making me gentle even with things I wasn't sure I cared about. The invitation itself was a masterpiece of traditional elegance. Thick cardstock, letterpress printing, tissue paper overlay, everything proper, everything expensive, everything screaming, "This is a serious union between serious people. Isabella Marie Chen and Gregory Thomas Whitmore request the honor of your presence at their wedding ceremony, June 23rd, a Saturday, at the Thornwood Castle, a historic estate south of Seattle that cost a fortune to rent. The kind of venue that required booking 18 months in advance and came with a price tag that could feed a small country. There was a smaller card tucked inside with a handwritten note in Isabella's perfect cursive. "Sophia, I know we haven't talked much lately, but you're my only sister. It would mean everything to have you there. Please say yes. Bella." Bella. She hadn't called herself that since we were kids. since before she decided that Isabella sounded more professional, more sophisticated, more worthy of the life she was building. I should have felt something reading those words. Some warmth, some connection to the girl who used to share a bedroom with me, who used to steal my clothes and tell me secrets in the dark. But that girl had disappeared somewhere around her sophomore year of college, replaced by this polished stranger who called twice a year and remembered my birthday approximately 60% of the time. I called her that evening. She answered on the fifth ring, sounding distracted. "Sophia? Hey, hold on." Muffled voices in the background, the sound of her covering the phone. "Sorry, I'm at a work dinner. Did you get the invitation? Just opened it." "Congratulations, Isabella. That's really exciting. Thanks. I'm so glad you can make it." She said it like it was already decided, like my presence was a foregone conclusion. "Listen, I have to get back, but I'll send you more details about the bridal party schedule and—" Wait, bridal party? A pause. "Oh, right. So I should have led with this, but the wedding party is already set. Gregory has 5 groomsmen, so I have 5 bridesmaids to match, law school friends mostly, plus Gregory's sister. You understand, right? These are people I see every day." The words landed exactly as intended. "You're not part of my daily life. You're not important enough, of course," I heard myself say. "That makes sense. I knew you'd get it. You've always been so understanding." Relief flooded her voice. "Okay, I really have to run. We'll catch up properly soon, I promise." She hung up before I could respond. I sat there staring at my phone, at the abrupt end to a conversation that had lasted less than 2 minutes, and wondered why I'd expected anything different. This was Isabella. This had always been Isabella. The thing about being the scapegoat in a family is that it doesn't happen overnight. It's not dramatic. There's no single moment where everyone sits down and decides, yes, let's make Sophia feel like garbage. It's 1,000 small cuts, accumulated over years, until you look down one day and realize you're bleeding out and nobody's noticed. Or worse, they've noticed and decided you deserve it. Growing up, Isabella was the shining star. Straight A's without trying, piano recitals where she played flawlessly, dance competitions she won, academic awards that lined our mother's office. I was 3 years younger, watching from the sidelines, applauding dutifully while our mother beamed with pride. I was good at things too, different things. I could draw, I could bake, I had a natural sense for flavors, for how ingredients work together. But those weren't the kinds of talents that impressed Linda Chen, former professor of economics, woman who measured success in degrees and salaries and professional accolades. When I was 12, I made a cake for Isabella's 15th birthday. Spent 3 days planning it, practicing the decoration, getting everything perfect. It was chocolate raspberry, her favorite, with buttercream roses I'd learned from YouTube videos. I was so proud of it. My mother barely glanced at it before heading to the bakery to pick up the real cake she'd ordered. "That's sweet, honey, but we need something professional for the photos. Why don't you try drawing instead? That seems more your speed." Isabella ate 1 slice of my cake, said it was cute, then posed for pictures with the professional one. I threw my cake away that night. Nobody noticed. That was the pattern. My efforts dismissed as cute or trying too hard, while Isabella's accomplishments were celebrated as natural genius. When I got accepted to culinary school, my mother's face fell. "Culinary school? Sophia, it's fine for a hobby, but what about your actual future? Don't you want to go to a real university?" A real university. Like what I'd chosen wasn't real, wasn't legitimate, wasn't worth the same pride she'd shown when Isabella got into Columbia. I went anyway, took out loans, worked 3 jobs to cover living expenses, graduated with honors, and immediately got hired at one of Seattle's best bakeries. I should have felt proud. I was proud. But there was always this nagging voice in my head that sounded suspiciously like my mother. "Is this really enough? Have you really accomplished anything worth celebrating?" The last family gathering before the wedding, was Easter dinner at my mother's house in Bellevue. I'd made a lemon tart, something I'd been perfecting for weeks. Meyer, lemon curd, buttery crust, Italian meringue torched to golden peaks. It was beautiful. It was delicious. It was professional level work. I set it on the dessert table next to the store-bought tiramisu Isabella had grabbed from Whole Foods on her way over. "Oh, Sophia," my mother said when she saw it. "You really didn't need to go to such trouble. Isabella's dessert is perfectly fine. This looks very elaborate, said like it was a character flaw, like caring about the quality of what I brought was somehow showing off, somehow inappropriate. Isabella barely tasted it. She was too busy telling everyone about Gregory, about their honeymoon plans to Santorini, about the custom wedding dress she'd commissioned from a designer I'd never heard of, but was apparently very exclusive. She held court at that dinner table like a queen granting audiences, and my mother hung on every word. "I'm so proud of you, sweetheart," my mother kept saying. "You've built such an incredible life. Everything you've worked for is coming together perfectly." I sat at the other end of the table, eating my own tart, invisible. Our father came to the dinner, too. He and my mother had divorced 6 years earlier, one of those cold, professional separations where lawyers handled everything and nobody raised their voices. He'd remarried quickly, a woman named Jennifer, who was pleasant enough, but clearly had no interest in being a stepmother to adult children. Dad tried, in his way. He asked about the bakery, seemed genuinely interested in what I was creating. But he was distant, distracted, like he'd fulfilled his obligation just by showing up. When he left, he hugged Isabella for a long time, told her how beautiful she looked, how lucky Gregory was. He gave me a quick side hug and said, "Take care, Sophie. Keep doing your thing, my thing, like my entire career, my entire life was just some quirky hobby I was indulging while real life happened elsewhere." In the weeks leading up to the wedding, I threw myself into work. We were preparing for summer, which meant wedding cake consultations almost daily. I'd spend hours with engaged couples, learning their stories, translating their love into sugar and flour. There was something beautiful about it, something pure. These people trusted me to create something that would become part of their memories, part of their story. But at night, alone in my apartment, I'd look at Isabella's wedding website, because of course she had a wedding website, professionally designed with an engagement photo shoot that looked like it belonged in Vogue. There were pictures of her and Gregory on beaches, in vineyards, in front of mountain vistas. They looked perfect together. Two beautiful people living a beautiful life, and there was no mention of me anywhere. The About Us section talked about Isabella's childhood, her accomplishments, her family. She has one sister, it said, just that. No name, no details, nothing that suggested I was a real person with, a real relationship to her. One sister. Like I was a footnote in her life story, barely worth acknowledging. I bought a dress for the wedding. Nothing too expensive because I couldn't afford it, but something that made me feel pretty. It was dusty blue, knee-length, with delicate lace on the sleeves. I bought new shoes, got my hair cut and highlighted. I told myself I wasn't trying to impress anyone, that I just wanted to look nice for my sister's big day. But deep down, I knew the truth. Some pathetic part of me still hoped that maybe, just maybe, my mother would see me and say something kind, that Isabella would introduce me to her friends with pride instead of obligation, that for once I'd matter. I should have known better. The wedding was on a Saturday in late June. I drove to Thornwood Castle alone, my gift wrapped in silver paper on the passenger seat. I'd agonized over what to give them, finally settled on a set of hand-thrown ceramic bowls from a local artist, something beautiful and thoughtful and expensive enough to show I cared. The drive took almost an hour. The castle sat on a hill overlooking American Lake, all Gothic windows and manicured gardens. It was stunning, the kind of place you saw in fairy tales. White chairs were already arranged in perfect rows facing the water, and flowers bloomed from every surface. No expense had been spared. This was the wedding my mother had always dreamed of. The wedding she'd never shut up about during family dinners, the wedding that would finally cement the Chen family's status in their social circle. I arrived 2 hours early, hoping to see Isabella before the ceremony. Maybe help with last-minute details. Maybe just hug my sister and tell her I was happy for her, even if our relationship was complicated. The bridal suite was in the castle's east wing, a massive room that probably cost more per night than my monthly rent. I could hear laughter and champagne glasses clinking before I even reached the door. I knocked softly. A bridesmaid I didn't recognize opened it. She looked me up and down, taking in my dress, my carefully styled hair, my nervous smile. "Can I help you? I'm Sophia, Isabella's sister. I just wanted to say hi before things get crazy." "Oh," she glanced back into the room. We're kind of in the middle of getting ready. It's pretty hectic in here." I could see past her. 6 women in matching silk robes, hair and makeup artists working, champagne bottles sweating in silver buckets, a photographer capturing every moment. Isabella sat in front of a mirror, already glowing, already perfect. She saw me. Our eyes met for just a second, and then she looked away, turning back to her makeup artist, saying something that made everyone laugh. The bridesmaid gave me an apologetic smile that didn't reach her eyes. Maybe try catching her after the ceremony? She's pretty overwhelmed right now. The door closed. I stood there in the hallway, holding my gift, feeling exactly like I'd felt my entire life. Not welcome, not wanted, not important enough to warrant even 5 minutes of my sister's time on the most important day of her life. I should have left then, should have gotten in my car and driven home and sent a polite text saying I'd gotten sick. But that stubborn part of me, the part that had endured years of being second best and still showed up, refused to give them the satisfaction of my absence. I went to find my seat. The ceremony area was beginning to fill with guests. Beautiful people in expensive clothes, chatting and laughing and taking photos against the gorgeous backdrop. I recognized some faces from family gatherings, aunts and uncles, and cousins I saw once every few years. None of them noticed me. Place cards directed guests to their assigned seats. The front rows were clearly for immediate family and VIPs. I walked past them, past the 3rd row, past the 5th row, all the way to the back, the very last row, and there, tucked behind a massive decorative marble pillar that supported the ceremony arbor, I found my name, Sophia Chen, hidden, invisible, positioned so I'd have an almost completely obstructed view of the ceremony. I stood there holding that little card with my name in elegant calligraphy and felt something crack inside my chest. This wasn't an oversight. This wasn't the wedding planner's mistake. This was deliberate. This was my sister telling me exactly where I belonged in her life, out of sight, out of mind, present only because excluding me entirely would look bad. I sat down. The pillar blocked everything. I could see maybe a third of where the ceremony would take place. I'd miss seeing Isabella walk down the aisle. I'd miss seeing her face as she said her vows. I'd miss everything that mattered. People continued arriving, finding their seats, greeting each other warmly. My mother swept in wearing a champagne-colored gown that probably cost more than my car, her hair professionally styled, her makeup flawless. She was escorted to the front row by a groomsman. She beamed at everyone, accepting congratulations, playing the role of proud mother of the bride. She never looked back, never scanned the crowd for her other daughter. Why would she? I was exactly where she'd always wanted me, invisible. The seats around me remained empty. I realized I'd been placed with the overflow guests, the people who had to be invited but didn't quite fit anywhere else, except there were no other overflow guests. Just me, alone in the back row, hidden behind a pillar. That's when I noticed him. A man, maybe early 30s, sitting 3 seats away from me on the other side of the pillar. He was striking, dark hair, sharp jawline, wearing a perfectly tailored charcoal suit that probably cost more than my entire wardrobe. But what caught my attention wasn't how attractive he was. It was his expression. He looked exactly as uncomfortable as I felt, like he'd rather be anywhere else, like he was attending this wedding out of obligation rather than desire. Our eyes met. He gave me a small, sympathetic smile, the kind of smile that said, "This is awful, isn't it?" I smiled back weakly before turning my attention to the front, or what little I could see of it. The music began. The wedding party processed down the aisle, 5 bridesmaids in sage green dresses, 5 groomsmen in navy suits. Then the ring bearer and flower girl, children from Gregory's family. Everyone looked perfect. Everything was choreographed flawlessly. Finally, Isabella appeared on our father's arm. Even from my obstructed view, I could see she was breathtaking. Her dress was everything she'd promised, custom designed, probably worth more than I'd make in a year. The veil trailed behind her like a cloud. Our father looked proud, distinguished, playing his role perfectly. I craned my neck, trying to see around the pillar. The angle was impossible. I caught glimpses, a flash of white fabric, the back of the officiant's head, the vague outline of Gregory waiting at the altar. But mostly I saw marble. Mostly I saw nothing. The ceremony began. I could hear the officiant's voice, but couldn't make out most of the words. Occasional phrases drifted back: love, commitment, partnership, forever. Generic wedding language that could have applied to anyone. I wondered if Isabella had written her own vows. I wondered if they were beautiful. I wondered if people were crying. I wouldn't know. I was behind a pillar, alone, listening to my sister get married like someone eavesdropping on a conversation they weren't invited to join. That's when the man spoke. He'd moved closer, now sitting in the seat directly next to mine. Up close, he was even more striking, gray eyes that seemed to see too much, a slight shadow of stubble, the kind of presence that made people pay attention. "This is possibly the worst seating arrangement I've ever seen," he said quietly, his voice barely above a whisper. "Are you being punished for something, or are they just terrible at planning?" Despite everything, I almost laughed. Apparently, I'm not part of the wedding aesthetic. He studied me for a moment, something calculating in his expression. "Let me guess. Relative they had to invite but hoped wouldn't come?" "Sister, actually. The bride's only sister." His eyebrows rose. "You're serious?" "Unfortunately. I don't even have words for how messed up that is." He extended his hand. "I'm Marcus. Sophia." I shook his hand, surprised by the warmth of it, the firmness of his grip. "Well, Sophia, I think we might be the only 2 people here who aren't drinking the Kool-Aid." He glanced toward the ceremony, toward all the people facing forward, watching Isabella's perfect moment. "Want to know a secret?" "What?" "I don't actually know anyone here. I'm a +1 for a colleague who couldn't make it. Gregory's company does business with mine, and my boss thought someone should represent us. So here I am, at a stranger's wedding, sitting behind a pillar with the forgotten sister." His smile was wry. "I've had better Saturdays. At least you chose to sit back here. I was assigned to invisibility." Marcus's expression shifted, something harder entering his eyes. "That's not just rude. That's cruel. Welcome to my family." We sat in silence for a moment, listening to the ceremony we couldn't see. Then Marcus leaned closer, his voice low. "I have an idea. It might be completely inappropriate, and you can absolutely say no. But if you're interested in making the rest of this evening less miserable—" I turned to look at him, curious despite myself. "What kind of idea?" "Just follow my lead and pretend you're my date. We'll walk into that reception together, and I guarantee you nobody will be treating you like you're invisible anymore. I should have said no, should have asked more questions, should have been suspicious of this stranger offering to play pretend boyfriend at my sister's wedding. But sitting there behind that pillar, listening to my sister marry someone I'd never met, knowing I'd been deliberately hidden away like something shameful, something in me snapped. Why would you do that for someone you just met? Marcus's smile turned sharp. Let's just say I have a soft spot for people who get treated like they don't matter. And besides, I'm about to make this wedding a lot more interesting. The ceremony ended with applause I could hear but barely see. People stood, began moving toward the cocktail hour location. This was the moment. Say yes or stay invisible. I looked at Marcus, at this stranger who'd somehow seen me when my own family couldn't, and made a decision that would change everything. Okay, let's do it. His smile widened. Then let's go make an entrance. He stood and offered me his hand. I took it, feeling the warmth of his palm against mine, the solidity of someone who actually acknowledged I existed. Together, we walked out from behind that pillar, and for the first time in my entire life, I wasn't invisible anymore. The cocktail hour was held in the castle's grand ballroom, a space that looked like it had been designed specifically to make people feel inadequate. Crystal chandeliers hung from vaulted ceilings, casting prismatic light across marble floors. Floor-to-ceiling windows overlooked the lake, now painted gold by the setting sun. Round tables draped in ivory linen were scattered throughout, each topped with centerpieces that probably cost more than my weekly paycheck. Servers in crisp uniforms circulated with trays of champagne and appetizers that looked like tiny works of art. Seared scallops on purple potato puree, prosciutto-wrapped figs with goat cheese, miniature beef Wellingtons that made my professional brain automatically start analyzing technique and execution. Marcus kept his hand on the small of my back as we entered, a gesture that looked casual but felt intentional, protective almost. We drew looks immediately, him because he was objectively striking in a way that made people take notice, and me because I was with him. For once, I wasn't invisible by association. I was visible because someone who mattered had chosen to stand beside me. I felt it immediately, that shift in energy. Guests who would have walked past me without a glance suddenly offered polite smiles. A few even nodded in acknowledgement. It was intoxicating and infuriating in equal measure. Nothing about me had changed. I was wearing the same dress, had the same face, the same name. But now I had value, because a handsome man in an expensive suit had decided I was worth his attention. "Let's get drinks," Marcus said, guiding me toward the bar. "And then I want you to tell me everything about this family that thought hiding you was acceptable." We ordered wine, a crisp Sauvignon Blanc that tasted expensive, and found a quieter corner near the windows. Marcus positioned us so we had a clear view of the room, but weren't in the main flow of traffic. Strategic placement. I was beginning to realize this man thought several steps ahead. "So," he said, leaning against the windowsill with the kind of casual elegance some people are just born with. "Start from the beginning. What makes a family put their daughter behind a pillar?" I took a long sip of wine, gathering my thoughts. Where did I even start? How did you explain a lifetime of being second best in a way that didn't sound like self-pity? "My sister Isabella is perfect," I began. "Or at least, she's what my family considers perfect. Law degree from Columbia, junior partner at a prestigious firm, marrying a man who probably has a trust fund and a country club membership. She's everything my mother always wanted in a daughter. And you're not. I'm a pastry chef. I live in a studio apartment in Capitol Hill. I took out loans to go to culinary school instead of a traditional university. In my family's eyes, those are failures, not choices." Marcus studied me with those gray eyes that seemed to see more than they should. "Your family's wrong. You don't know me well enough to say that. I know enough. I know you care about craft and skill and creating something beautiful. I know you showed up today even though they've given you every reason not to. That takes strength most people don't have." His words hit something tender inside me, something I'd been protecting for years. I had to look away, blinking back the sudden sting of tears. "Sorry," he said softly. "I didn't mean to." "No, it's fine." I forced a smile. I'm just not used to people seeing me as anything other than the disappointing daughter who works with food. then they're not looking hard enough. Before I could respond, a woman approached us. She was probably in her 50s, wearing a navy dress and a smile that looked professionally pleasant. Her eyes assessed Marcus first, then slid to me with thinly veiled curiosity. "Excuse me, I don't believe we've met. I'm Patricia Holloway. I work with Gregory at Whitmore Investments." She extended her hand to Marcus. "Marcus Thorne," he said, shaking her hand with easy confidence. "Renewable Energy Consulting. My firm works with several investment groups in the area." "Oh, how interesting." Patricia's interest sharpened. "Gregory mentioned they were looking into sustainable portfolio options. You should definitely connect with him. I'd like that." Marcus's hand found mine, linking our fingers together in a gesture that looked completely natural. "This is Sophia Chen. She's Isabella's sister." Patricia's eyebrows rose in genuine surprise. "Oh, I had no idea Isabella had a sister." She never mentioned. She caught herself, realizing how that sounded. "I mean, I'm sure it just never came up in conversation." "I'm sure," I replied, keeping my voice neutral even as the comment burned. "What do you do, Sophia?" Patricia asked, her tone suggesting she was asking out of politeness rather than interest. "I'm a pastry chef at Larkin Sparrow Bakery in Capitol Hill." "How lovely," Patricia said. "In that way people do when they think something is cute but unimportant. That must be fun." "Fun. Like my career was a hobby. Like the years of training, the early mornings, the burns and cuts and failures that taught me my craft were just amusing entertainment." "Sophia's work is exceptional," Marcus said, his voice carrying an edge that made Patricia's smile falter slightly. "She creates art that happens to be edible. Not everyone has that kind of talent." Patricia recovered quickly. "Of course, I'm sure it's quite difficult." "Well, I should mingle. Lovely to meet you both." She disappeared into the crowd, and I turned to Marcus. "You didn't have to do that." "Yes, I did." His jaw was tight. These people talk about passion and craft and innovation in their corporate worlds, but they can't recognize it when it's standing right in front of them because it comes in the wrong package. "You sound like you're speaking from experience." His expression shifted, something guarded sliding into place. "My father disowned me when I chose renewable energy over joining his oil company. He called it betraying the family legacy, said I was throwing away my future for some liberal fantasy that would never pay off. I'm sorry, don't be. He was wrong. My company's thriving, and his industry is dying. Turns out choosing what you believe in over what's expected can actually work out." We stood there for a moment, two people who'd been dismissed by the people who were supposed to support them, finding unexpected solidarity in our shared understanding. The crowd in the ballroom was growing. I spotted my mother across the room, holding court with a group of women who were probably her book club or country club or whatever exclusive social circle she belonged to these days. She was animated, laughing, gesturing with her champagne glass, the picture of a proud mother on her daughter's wedding day. She still hadn't looked for me, hadn't checked to see if I'd made it, if I was okay, if I needed anything. But of course she hadn't. I was the daughter who didn't matter, the one who'd chosen wrong, who'd embarrassed her with my pedestrian career and modest lifestyle. Marcus followed my gaze. "That's her? Linda Chen in all her glory. When's the last time she said something genuinely kind to you?" I had to think about it, really think. Years, maybe longer. His expression hardened. "And yet you came today. I'm starting to wonder why." A server passed with a tray of appetizers, and I snagged what looked like a crab cake. It was perfectly executed, golden crust, tender interior, served on a delicate sauce that complemented without overwhelming. Whoever catered this knew what they were doing. "Professional assessment?" Marcus asked, watching me. "It's good. Really good, actually. The crab is fresh, the seasoning is balanced, and the texture is spot on. This is expensive catering. Everything about this wedding is expensive." He glanced around the room, trying to buy the appearance of happiness instead of building the real thing. That's harsh. Is it? Look around, Sophia. Everyone here is performing success, performing joy, performing the perfect wedding guest. How many of these people actually care about your sister and her husband? How many are here because they had to be, because it would look bad not to come, because being seen at the right events matters more than genuine connection? I looked, really looked. He was right. The conversations were shallow, the laughter a bit too bright. People clustered by profession and social status, performing their roles in this elaborate theatrical production that was Isabella's perfect wedding. You're very cynical for someone who works in renewable energy. I thought you'd be more optimistic about humanity. I'm optimistic about what humanity could be. I'm realistic about what it often is. Before I could respond, I spotted Isabella and Gregory making their grand entrance. They paused at the doorway, framed perfectly for the photographer who immediately started snapping pictures. Isabella looked radiant, Gregory handsome and proud. They were the fairy tale couple, and everyone applauded their arrival. Isabella's eyes swept the room, acknowledging guests with practiced grace. Her gaze passed over me, then snapped back, surprise registering on her features. I could see her trying to place Marcus, trying to understand why I was standing with someone who looked important, who looked like he belonged at this wedding more than I did. She said something to Gregory, who looked our way as well. There was a flicker of recognition on his face when he saw Marcus, followed by something that looked like concern. "Interesting," Marcus murmured. "Your brother-in-law knows who I am? Is that significant?" "Very. My firm is in discussions with Whitmore Investments about a major sustainability initiative. We're talking millions in potential business. Gregory's been trying to get a meeting with me for 3 months. And you've been avoiding him? I've been busy. But also, I don't love working with companies that prioritize image over actual change. I got the impression Whitmore Investments wants to appear green more than they want to be green. So coming here was a favor to my colleague who couldn't make it. I wasn't planning on talking business." But now Marcus smiled, and there was something sharp in it. "Now I'm thinking this evening might be more interesting than I expected. What are you planning?" "Nothing concrete. Yet. But I'm a firm believer that people should face consequences for how they treat others. Your sister put you behind a pillar, Sophia. Your family has spent your entire life making you feel less than. Maybe it's time they understood that dismissing people has costs." His words should have alarmed me, should have sent up red flags about manipulation and revenge, and getting involved in something I didn't fully understand. But sitting there, invisible at my own sister's wedding, something darker whispered that maybe I deserved a little vindication. "What exactly are you suggesting?" "I'm suggesting we spend the rest of this evening making it very clear that you're not someone who can be dismissed, that you matter, that you have connections and value and a life they know nothing about because they never bothered to ask, by pretending to be my boyfriend, by being your partner for the evening, yes. But Sophia," and his voice turned serious, "I want you to understand something. This isn't charity. This isn't me feeling sorry for you. This is me seeing an opportunity to help someone who deserves better while also making a point to people who need to learn that everyone they encounter matters. And if it happens to benefit you somehow, if it happens to make Gregory more eager to work with my company because his new sister-in-law is dating me, well, that's just a happy coincidence. I should have said no. Should have thanked him for the kindness, but explained that I wasn't interested in playing games or using connections for revenge. But I was tired, so tired of being invisible, of being dismissed, of showing up and trying and caring and receiving nothing in return. "Okay," I said, "let's do this." Marcus's smile widened. "Then let's make an entrance at dinner." Dinner was announced shortly after, and guests began flowing toward the main dining hall. It was even more spectacular than the cocktail hour space. Long tables arranged in a U shape around a central dance floor, with the head table elevated on a platform where Isabella and Gregory would sit with their wedding party. Place cards directed guests to their assigned seats. I approached the table layout with dread, already knowing what I'd find. Sure enough, my name card was at a table in the far corner, positioned so I'd need to crane my neck awkwardly just to see the head table. The chairs around me were mostly empty. I'd been placed with the overflow guests again, the people who had to be invited but didn't quite fit anywhere else. Marcus appeared at my elbow, his own place, card in hand. He was assigned to a table on the opposite side of the room, close to where Gregory's business associates would be sitting. "This is ridiculous," he said flatly. "They put you in the worst seat in the entire venue. It's fine. I'm used to it." Well, I'm not. He plucked my place card from the table and pocketed it along with his own. "Come on, Marcus, we can't just watch me." He guided me toward a table much closer to the head table, one clearly designated for important guests. Without hesitation, he pulled out a chair for me and settled into the seat beside me with the kind of confidence that suggested he belonged exactly where he was. "If anyone asks," Marcus said quietly, "there was a mix-up with the seating chart and we're fixing it ourselves. Trust me." The table filled quickly with guests who clearly knew each other well. They were Gregory's colleagues from Whitmore Investments, I gathered from their conversation. People in expensive suits talking about quarterly returns and market trends and opportunities in emerging sectors. They greeted Marcus with familiarity, some with surprise at seeing him here. "Thorne, I didn't know you were coming," one man said, extending his hand. "Robert Hendricks, we met at the Sustainability Conference in Portland last year. Good to see you again, Robert." Marcus shook his hand easily. "My colleague was supposed to attend but got sick. I'm here representing our firm." "Well, we're glad you made it." Robert's gaze shifted to me with curiosity. "And who's this?" "This is Sophia Chen," Marcus said, his hand resting on my back in a gesture that looked completely natural. "Isabella's sister." The surprise around the table was palpable. A woman in a burgundy dress, Marianne something I'd heard someone call her, smiled warmly, but with confusion evident in her eyes. I had no idea Isabella had a sister. She never mentioned it during any of our planning meetings. The words stung even though I'd expected them. My sister had worked closely enough with Gregory's colleagues to plan aspects of this wedding, but she'd never once mentioned having a sister. "Isabella tends to keep her personal and professional lives separate," I said neutrally, proud that my voice didn't waver. "Smart approach," Robert said, though his expression suggested he found it odd. "What do you do, Sophia?" "I'm a pastry chef. I own a specialty dessert business in Capitol Hill." The lie slipped out before I could stop it. I didn't own a business. I worked at someone else's bakery. But something about the way these people were looking at me, assessing my worth based on my professional status, made me stretch the truth. Marcus didn't contradict me. Instead, he added, "Sophia's work is exceptional. She specializes in custom wedding cakes and corporate event desserts. Her client list is impressive." "How wonderful," Marianne said, her interest now genuine. "We're actually looking for a new caterer for our annual gala in September. The company we usually use has gotten so corporate and impersonal. Would you be interested in discussing it?" "I'd love to," I heard myself say, even as panic fluttered in my chest. What was I doing? I couldn't handle a major corporate gala. I didn't have the infrastructure, the staff, the capacity. But Marcus's hand squeezed mine under the table, silent encouragement, and I found myself exchanging contact information with Marianne, promising to send her a portfolio of my work. Dinner was served in courses, each plate more elaborate than the last. Burrata with heirloom tomatoes and aged balsamic, wild mushroom bisque with truffle oil, a choice between pan-seared duck breast or herb-crusted Chilean sea bass. The food was exquisite, prepared by someone who understood not just technique, but artistry. I found myself analyzing each course, making mental notes about presentation and flavor combinations. Marcus noticed, of course. Can't turn off the professional brain. Occupational hazard. This duck is perfectly cooked, still pink in the center, crispy skin. The cherry gastrique is sweet without being cloying. Whoever's in the kitchen knows what they're doing. Could you do better? Different, maybe. Not necessarily better. This is excellent execution of classic technique, but you'd put your own spin on it. I smiled. Always. The conversation at our table flowed easily. Gregory's colleagues were actually interesting once you got past the corporate speak. They asked thoughtful questions, engaged in real discussion, treated me like someone worth talking to. It was intoxicating after years of being dismissed. Between courses, the speeches began. Gregory's father stood first, a silver-haired man in an impeccable tuxedo who spoke about his son with obvious pride. He talked about Gregory's accomplishments, his character, his bright future. He welcomed Isabella into their family with warmth that seemed genuine, calling her exactly the kind of woman he'd always hoped Gregory would find. Then my mother stood. I felt my body tense involuntarily, dreading what was coming. She looked beautiful, I had to admit. Poised and elegant in her champagne gown, her makeup perfect, her smile radiant, the picture of a proud mother on her daughter's special day. When Isabella was born, my mother began, her voice carrying across the room. I knew she was special. She was such a determined baby, always reaching for things just beyond her grasp, never satisfied with where she was. That determination has defined her entire life. She told stories about Isabella's childhood, the academic awards, the piano recitals, the debate team victories. She talked about Isabella's college years, her law school triumphs, her rapid rise at the firm. She spoke about the wedding planning process, about mother-daughter shopping trips and cake tastings and all the precious moments they'd shared. She talked for 7 minutes. I timed it. 7 minutes about Isabella's perfect life, her perfect accomplishments, her perfect future. She mentioned me, not once. Not even to acknowledge that Isabella had a sibling. I was edited out of the family history completely, erased from the narrative as if I'd never existed at all. I felt Marcus's hand find mine under the table, his fingers intertwining with mine. The touch was anchor, something solid to hold on to while I tried not to come apart. Around me, people smiled and nodded and applauded. No one seemed to notice the glaring omission. No one cared that a daughter had just been publicly erased by her own mother, except Marcus. He cared. I could feel the tension in his body, see the tightness in his jaw. When he leaned close to whisper in my ear, his voice was low and fierce. That was unforgivable. I nodded, not trusting myself to speak without my voice breaking. The best man's speech followed, Gregory's brother, making jokes about bachelor parties and golf games, and finding true love. Then the maid of honor, one of Isabella's law school friends, telling stories about late-night study sessions and celebrating job offers, and how she'd always known Isabella would find someone worthy of her. More speeches praising Isabella, more stories that didn't include me. I sat there increasingly numb, wondering why I'd expected anything different. Dessert was served, a towering confection of white chocolate and raspberry, beautifully plated, but I couldn't help myself, with some technical flaws. The mousse was slightly too loose, and the raspberry coulis was overly sweet, masking the chocolate rather than complementing it. Professional critique? Marcus asked, watching my expression. The presentation is stunning, but the execution is off. The flavor balance isn't quite right. Could you do better? In my sleep, I said, and realized I meant it. Whatever else I was or wasn't, however much my family dismissed me, I was good at this, really good. In the kitchen, I had worth that no one could take away. Prove it, Marcus said. What? I'm serious. Prove it. Show them what you can do. Marcus, I don't have access to a professional kitchen. I can't just... Not tonight, but soon. There will be opportunities, Sophia. And when they come, I want you to take them. Show your family what they've been too blind to see. His intensity startled me. This wasn't just about helping a stranger anymore. There was something personal in his investment, something that suggested he understood exactly what it felt like to be dismissed by the people who should have supported you most. After dessert, the reception transitioned into dancing. Isabella and Gregory took the floor for their first dance, swirling together under perfect lighting while a live band played a romantic ballad. They looked like something from a movie, the perfect couple having their perfect moment. My father cut in for the father-daughter dance. I watched them move together, remembering times he'd danced with me when I was small, before the divorce, before everything fell apart. Did Isabella remember those times? Did she ever think about the family we used to be? Marcus stood and offered his hand. Dance with me. You don't have to keep up the pretense. Nobody's watching us right now. I'm not pretending. Dance with me, Sophia. I let him lead me onto the dance floor. He was an excellent dancer, confident and smooth, leading with certainty while keeping respectful distance. We swayed to the music, and I found myself relaxing into the rhythm, into the moment. Thank you, I said quietly, for tonight, for sitting with me, for the whole fake date thing. You didn't have to do any of this. Maybe I wanted to, he replied. You're more interesting than anyone else at this wedding, Sophia, more real. You barely know me. I know enough. I know you're talented and underappreciated. I know you see through the superficial performance that most people accept without question. I know you're hurting, but trying not to show it, and that takes more strength than your family will ever understand. His words cracked something open inside me, something I'd been protecting for years. My eyes burned with unexpected tears, and I blinked rapidly, refusing to cry at my sister's wedding. The song ended, transitioning into something more upbeat. Other couples joined the dance floor. Marcus guided us to the edge, away from the crowd. I need air, I admitted. Let's go. We slipped out onto a terrace that overlooked the gardens. The evening had cooled, the air carrying the scent of roses and cut grass. Fairy lights twinkled in the trees, creating an almost magical atmosphere that felt at odds with the turmoil inside me. I shouldn't have come, I said, leaning against the stone railing. I knew it would be like this. But some stupid part of me hoped it would be different, that maybe Isabella would remember we're sisters, that maybe my mother would see me as something other than the daughter who chose wrong. Marcus stood beside me, his shoulder touching mine. Family can be the most complicated relationship we have. We're bound to them by blood and history, but that doesn't guarantee love or respect or even basic consideration. You sound like you're speaking from experience. My father hasn't spoken to me in 4 years. He had very specific plans for my life. Join his company, eventually take over, continue the family legacy in oil and gas. When I chose renewable energy instead, he took it as a personal betrayal. Told me I was throwing away everything he'd built, everything he'd given me. I'm sorry, that must have been devastating. It was. It is. But it also taught me something important. The people who are supposed to love us unconditionally are still just people. They have their own limitations, their own prejudices, their own failures. Sometimes the family we choose matters more than the family we're born into. Is that what tonight is? You choosing to be kind to a stranger? Maybe it started that way. But you're not a stranger anymore, Sophia, and this isn't just kindness. There was something in his voice, something that made my heart beat faster. The air between us felt charged, full of possibility and danger in equal measure. Before I could respond, the terrace doors opened and a group of guests spilled out, laughing and talking loudly. The moment broke. Marcus stepped back slightly, the spell disrupted. We should probably go back inside, he said. Your sister will be cutting the cake soon. The cake cutting was everything I expected. More photos, more performance, more carefully choreographed moments designed for maximum impact. Isabella fed Gregory a delicate bite. He returned the gesture with equal care. No smashed cake, nothing undignified, perfect control, as always. But I wasn't watching the cake. I was watching my sister's face, looking for any sign of genuine joy beneath the performance. And for just a moment, I saw something flicker across her features. Uncertainty? Doubt? It was gone so quickly, I might have imagined it. As servers distributed cake slices, my mother made her way through the crowd, stopping to chat with various guests. She was in her element, basking in reflected glory. When her gaze finally landed on me, surprise flickered across her features, followed quickly by calculation. She approached our table with measured steps, her smile tightening as she drew closer. "Sophia, I didn't realize you were sitting here. This table was reserved for Gregory's business associates." "There was a seating mix-up," Marcus said smoothly before I could respond. "I'm Marcus Thorne, with Thorne Environmental Consulting. Sophia and I are here together." My mother's gaze swept over Marcus, taking in his expensive suit, his confident demeanor, his obvious success. I could see her recalculating, reassessing my presence based on the caliber of my companion. "I see. Well, it's lovely to meet you, Marcus. I'm Linda Chen, Isabella's mother." She emphasized the words, Isabella's mother, not our mother, making clear the hierarchy even in basic introduction. "The pleasure is mine," Marcus replied. "Sophia has told me so much about the family." "Has she?" My mother's smile didn't reach her eyes. "I hope she hasn't been boring you with stories about her little bakery." "Actually, Sophia was just telling me about the corporate gala she's catering in September. Sounds like an impressive opportunity." My mother blinked, clearly not expecting this. "A corporate gala?" "For Whitmore Investments," I clarified, the lie growing easier with repetition. "Marianne asked if I'd be interested." "Oh, well, that's wonderful, dear." My mother's expression suggested she was struggling to process this information. "I should get back to our other guests. Do try to enjoy yourself." She swept away, leaving a trail of expensive perfume and maternal confusion in her wake. "That was satisfying," Marcus observed, once she was out of earshot. "That was terrifying. I just lied to my mother about catering a gala I'm not qualified to handle." "Then get qualified. You have 2 months. Make it happen." "Marcus, I can't just—" "Why not? What's actually stopping you?" I opened my mouth to list all the reasons, then closed it again. What was stopping me? Fear? Insecurity? The voice in my head that sounded like my mother, telling me I wasn't good enough? "I'll help you," Marcus said. "My company works with Whitmore Investments. I can make sure Marianne follows through on that inquiry. And when she does, you're going to create something so spectacular that no one will ever question your talent again." "Why are you doing this?" "Really? What do you get out of helping me?" "Revenge," he said simply. "Not against you. For you. Your family has spent years making you feel small and insignificant. I want to help you prove them wrong. And yes, if it happens to make Gregory more eager to work with my firm, that's a bonus. But mostly, I can't stand watching talented people be dismissed by people too foolish to recognize their worth." His honesty was startling. No pretense, no false altruism, just straightforward acknowledgement that this was mutually beneficial and that he was okay with that. "So what now?" I asked. "Now we finish this wedding like the power couple we're pretending to be. Tomorrow we start planning how to make your family see what they've been missing." The rest of the evening passed in a blur. More dancing, more conversations with Gregory's colleagues who suddenly found me interesting. More moments of Marcus playing his role perfectly, making me feel seen and valued in ways I'd never experienced before. Isabella and Gregory eventually made their exit, running through sparklers held by guests, climbing into a luxury car that would take them to their honeymoon suite. As they drove away, I felt strange finality. The wedding was over. Isabella had her perfect day, and I had survived it. More than survived. For the first time in my life, I'd been visible at a family event, acknowledged, treated like I mattered. It shouldn't have required a handsome stranger playing pretend boyfriend, but I'd take what I could get. Marcus walked me to my car as other guests began departing. The night had cooled further, stars visible above the castle's turrets. "Can I see you again?" he asked. "Outside of wedding pretense, in the real world where we're just two people without assigned seating charts and family drama?" I wanted to say yes immediately. Every instinct told me this man was different, that this connection was real, despite unusual circumstances. But doubt crept in, the familiar voice reminding me that people like Marcus didn't date people like me, that this was probably just kindness extended through one evening. You don't have to say that just because you felt sorry for me tonight. I'm not. I'm saying it because I spent the evening with someone I genuinely enjoyed being around, someone who made me laugh and think and feel less alone in a room full of people, someone I want to know better. He paused, vulnerability crossing his features. But if you're not interested, I understand. I don't want to push. I am interested, I admitted. I just don't want to get my hopes up about something that might disappear in the morning light. Then let's make sure it doesn't. Have breakfast with me tomorrow. There's a place I know in Capitol Hill. Incredible pancakes. We can talk without tuxedos and wedding stress. What do you say? Breakfast sounds good. His smile was genuine and relieved. 9 o'clock. I'll text you the address. We exchanged numbers, and then he did something unexpected. He leaned in slowly, giving me time to pull away if I wanted. I didn't want. His lips met mine in a kiss that was gentle and questioning and somehow exactly right. It lasted only a moment before he pulled back, his thumb brushing my cheek. Good night, Sophia. I'm glad I crashed your sister's wedding. I'm glad you did too. I drove home in a daze, Marcus's jacket draped over the passenger seat because I'd been cold and he'd insisted. My apartment felt different when I walked in, smaller maybe, but also more mine than it had ever been. My phone buzzed with a text from Isabella. Thanks for coming tonight. It meant a lot having you there. I stared at the message. It meant a lot. Really? Was that why she'd seated me behind a pillar? Why she'd never mentioned having a sister? Why she'd looked surprised to find me sitting with important guests? I typed and deleted several responses before settling on something neutral. Congratulations again. The wedding was beautiful. She responded immediately. We should definitely get together when we're back from the honeymoon. I want to hear all about your new boyfriend. He seems very successful. Of course. That's what she'd taken away from the evening. Not that I'd been there supporting her, not that we'd barely spoken, but that I'd shown up with an impressive date. That was the only thing that made me visible to her. I didn't respond. Instead, I set my phone aside and thought about everything that had happened. I'd gone to that wedding expecting to feel invisible, and I'd been proven right in the worst ways possible. But I'd also met Marcus, had spent hours feeling seen and valued and understood. And now I had breakfast tomorrow, a potential catering gig I was wildly unqualified for, and a handsome stranger who seemed genuinely interested in helping me reclaim my worth. My life was about to get very complicated, but for the first time in years, I felt like maybe, just maybe, I was done being invisible. Tomorrow, everything would change. Tonight I went to sleep wearing Marcus's jacket, smelling his cologne, and imagining possibilities I'd never let myself consider before. The invisible daughter was about to become impossible to ignore, and my family had no idea what was coming.